Hi, I'm Rod Bryant. Thank you for taking time to watch these classes. Thank you also for the kind support that you're showing by presenting the encouraging words that you do, and we really appreciate it. This is a joint venture by YPS, Yeshiva Perkei Shoshanim, and Nativ. This joint venture is to bring the knowledge of Hashem to the nations, and to the Jewish people that will take this course, help them to understand the particular details of the Noahide and Noahide is, and what it really means, so that you can help to guide those people in the nations that come to you and say that they want to learn more about Judaism or that they would like to convert. As we well know, there is a fantastic option for the bin or bat Noach that wants to convert, and that is to be a pious person of the nation and follow the Sheva Mitzvot, the 7 categories that God has given them. Now, we started last class on the subject of Noahide prayer. Today we continue on in Noahide prayer. We're going to be talking about blessings, bracha. And if you've been around Judaism very long, you know that there is a bracha for everything. Whether it's when you wake up in the morning or go to bed at night, or having a piece of candy or a sweet apple, or observing nature itself, there's a bracha for it all. So we're going to go through some introduction to blessings and the types of mitzvahs, the types of brachas or blessings that are mentioned for the Jewish people, and eventually we're going to understand where the Noahides fit into that. Now, as mentioned in previous lessons, Noahides may adopt any Jewish mitzvah in all of its details, provided that the mitzvah is logical or provides a tangible benefit to society, oneself, or the world at large. Among the mitzvahs compelled by logic, for example, is prayer. However, these mitzvahs, compelled by logic or benefit, are of a different nature than other Noahide mitzvahs. There are 3 classes of mitzvahs. Let's look at those. Mitzvahs in general are divided into 3 classes. One is mechuyaves, is mitzvot that one must do, for example, the mitzvot involving the establishment of justice and courts. These are mechiyavos, or mitzvot that are commanded that you do. They're obligatory, and one is liable for their neglect. The next category of mitzvahs is reshus, mitzvahs that are optional. This means that the mitzvah exists and applies to a person. However, one is not punished or liable for neglecting the mitzvah. If one performs such a mitzvah, then he is accorded the reward and merit for doing so. And the third, mitzvahs which have no application to a person. Some mitzvahs are entirely inapplicable to some people. For example, the Kohanim, the temple priests, have commandments unique to them alone. And their mitzvahs are inapplicable to other Jews. Other Jews may not even adopt these mitzvahs voluntarily. It is very risky and spiritually dangerous to adopt mitzvahs or commandments to which one has no connection. At best, one receives no merit for doing so. At worst, one may receive divine punishment. Now, this is true for both Jews and Noahides. One should be very cautious when adopting practices to which one has no obligation or connection. We must reemphasize that. Why do an obligation or a mitzvah or a commandment that is not required upon you? The Sheva Mitzvot, or the 7 categories of Noach, and their subdivisions generally fall into the first category, those obligatory mitzvahs. Jewish mitzvahs, which have no connection to Noahides, for example, mostly dairy laws, observance to many Jewish holidays, fall to the third group. Noahide mitzvahs, compelled by logic or practically benefit, generally fall into the second category. One does not need to perform such mitzvahs, but is preferable and logical to do so. The source of blessings. It is an obligatory mitzvah for Jews, before partaking of any benefit that this world has to offer, is to give a bracha or a blessing. That is a bracha in Hebrew. And that is to give a blessing to Hashem for providing such benefit. What is the origin of this practice? Well, it is from the Torah, or is it from the rabbis? It's a very important distinction. Blessings after the meals. Here's another bracha. With regard to one blessing in particular, the Birkat Hatzimon, we know its obligation comes from the Torah. The Torah states, quote, "You shall eat, be satisfied, and bless God your Lord for the good land that he has given you." From here we learned the biblical obligation to bless after meals, and two further blessings, the one said before learning Torah and the blessing before eating and before eating certain species of fruits or grains or wine, may be biblical in origin. However, pinning it down precisely is difficult. Very generally, most authorities view the blessings for learning Torah is biblical in origin. However, there is no clear consensus as to the origin of that blessing in the Torah. What about many other blessings? The Talmud concedes that all other blessings, though obligatory, are only rabbinic in origin. Their authority is compelled by logic alone and not by particular biblical decree, as the Talmud states. Though not a command of God, it is a logical obligation upon a person. God gave us this world to partake of and to serve him through. And every time we benefit from this world, we're partaking from God's kindness, his chesed. It only makes sense, therefore, to acknowledge God, the giver. As support for this line of reasoning, the Talmud invokes a subtle contradiction in the verses of the Psalm. Rabbi Levi noted contradiction between two verses. One verse states, "The earth and its fullness belong to God." The other verse says, "The heavens belong to God, but the earth he gave to man." He resolved the contradiction, Rabbi Levi, by stating that one verse refers to the status of the world before reciting the bracha, and the other to after the recitation, said Rabbi Hanina bar Papa. When one derives enjoyment from this world without a bracha, it is as if he has stolen from the Blessed One. Before one eats a fruit, the fruit belongs to God. He created it and nurtured it and brought it to its place in its existence. One cannot partake of that fruit unless he redeems it by making a blessing upon it, thanking God for the benefit one is about to receive. Otherwise, this partaking of the fruit is akin to stealing. Incidentally, the Talmudic passage illustrates a concept mentioned in an earlier lesson, number 6. We saw that mitzvahs are only learned and provided from the Torah and not from the prophets and the writings. The prophets and the writings exist to elaborate and to elucidate our understanding of the Torah. They also provide support and insight into the rabbinic decrees. Let's take a note that the Talmud does not use these psalm verses as biblical proof for making blessings. Instead, they are used to support a rabbinical proposition based on religious logic. Let's look at the Jewish obligation versus the Noahide obligation. For Jews, making blessings over benefit is an obligatory mitzvah, even though almost all blessings are of a rabbinic origin, with the exception of the blessing after the meal and possibly a few others. A Jew is nevertheless required to make them. Neglecting brachos is considered transgression for a Jew. Since the whole idea of a brachos is rooted in religious logic, for Noahides, it falls into a second category mentioned above. Reshus, voluntary mitzvahs. What about the blessing after meals? Isn't this biblical in origin? Yes, it is. However, the blessing is and was only commanded to the Jews, not to the Noahides. Nevertheless, the idea of making a blessing after meals is compelled by the same religious logic that compels all other blessings. Before we bring more definition to that, let's look at 3 types of blessings of brachas. The Maimonides, based upon the Talmud, identifies 3 categories of brachos, blessings. Blessing over benefit. These include blessings over food, drink, and spices, etc. Second would be prayers and blessings for Noahide, since God's commandments exist to benefit mankind. Jews making blessings when coming to fulfill the commandment. The formula of these types of blessings is the well-known, "Blessed are you, O God, ruler of the universe, who has hallowed us with his commandment of XYZ. Blessing of thanks and praise and gratitude. It's another one. It's wide open. There isn't any specific prayer that one must utter to do this. It can be an open prayer. You see, all 3 categories are to Noahides. What does it mean to bless God? Let's go and answer that question. I've had many people over the years that knew me prior to following toward Judaism as a ben Noah. As a pastor, we would never say in the Christian world, let's bless God, because one would think, well, how is it possible to bless God? Well, in a Jewish context, we're going to understand exactly what that means. You're going to understand how important it is to bless the Almighty. Before going further, let's stop for a minute and consider a basic question. What does it mean to bless God? If the idea of blessing, of brachos, is to express gratitude and thanks, then why blessings are worded, blessed are you, instead of thanks or gratitude to you? Furthermore, if God is the source of all blessings, then who are we to bless? God? God, after all, has no lack of deficiency. It's not like he needs you to bless him. He's perfect. This question has been asked by many scholars, and I would say by many people even up to this day. And many answers have been provided, all from which points in the same direction, but could possibly be a bit different. Yid Katanan saying, blessed are you, is an acknowledgement that God is the source of the concept of blessing. Rashba stated this, included in the concept of a bracha is the admission that he, the Blessed One, is ruler over all, and everything is from him. As it says in the Talmud, a person must bless God for the bad just as he must bless him for the good. This is because the word bracha comes from the word brecha, meaning reservoir of water. The illusion of primordial waters of creation, the source of all things. Cheskuni, the word bracha, baruch, which applied to God, is used like a greeting, implying supreme praise. It is not to be understood in the regular sense of the word blessed. Here is Chaim Volotzin. The word bracha implies burgeoning abundance. Even the letters of the word base, resh, chaf, imply such. The numerical value of the letters is a progression of multiples of 10, base to 200. The sampling of interpretations all indicate that blessed, when referring to God, is a statement of praise for God as the source of all blessings and abundance. It applies not only acknowledgement and gratitude, but recognition that God is the unique sole provider of all things. Now we're going to examine the Jewish text of blessing. The text of the blessings we first recorded by Ezra and his assembly in about 350 BCE. Their texts were the result of tremendous study and contemplation, debate, and even prayer. This effort imbued the text of the blessings with a holiness and an authority that endures into this very day. Writes the Rambam, as many others, it is not appropriate to alter them, that is the text of the blessings, nor add or subtract to them. Anyone who deviates from the text that the sages instituted for blessings is mistaken. However, the sages instituted their texts for the Jewish community, not for the Noahide community. So, what text should the Noahides use for their blessing? On one hand, Noahides may use any text for blessings, provided it satisfies the core idea of a blessing, to acknowledge God as the creator of all things who bestow benefit upon creation. However, let's recall for a moment that the compelling reason for a bracha or a blessing is the same both for Noahides and Jews. A compelling religious logic. Considering this, the text formulated by Ezra should be sufficient for Jews as well as Noahides. For this reason, it is not only permissible, but perhaps even preferable for Noahides to use the established text of the blessings as found in the Jewish Siddur. Furthermore, it is also preferable to make the blessing according to the same rules that govern Jewish practice. For example, the blessing after meals. An exception to using the Jewish text exists with regard to the blessing said after meals. Example, the Jewish Siddur. This blessing was originally a single paragraph composed by Moshe. Over time, 3 more paragraphs were added. Each of the 4 paragraphs speak of the matters pertaining solely to the Jewish obligation to bless after meals and the unique connection between the Jewish people and the land of Israel. Now, it is therefore incorrect for Noahides to use this text. As little known fact, that the Midrash actually records a Noahide blessing for after meals. We are taught that Abraham, who excelled in offering hospitality to guests, would never ask his guests to thank him or pay him. Rather, Abraham only asked that his guests recite the blessing to thank God, and the blessing be taught to them. Blessed is the God of the universe, for whom bounty we have eaten. And it appears that this was recited after any fulfilling meal, whether or not it was bread or etc. And now for Noahide, it is advisable that this blessing be said after any filling, sitting down meal following the precedent of Abraham. These blessings may be enhanced by adding Psalm 67 or 104. And so instead of going into the additional paragraphs that were added later, one could recite the beginning of this blessing that we just said, and then add Psalm 67 and Psalm 104 before it. Recently, many texts have been composed for Noahides for after meals. Many of these texts are very good, and yet should be used in addition to the blessings mentioned above, preferably reciting before it. In the next lesson, we'll explore the actual blessings to use and the rules governing their use. So let's go over the summary. If you have your paper, open it up and we'll summarize what we just talked about. There are three types of mitzvahs. Ones that are obligations, one must do. Second is a mitzvah that one should do, yet for which one is not liable for neglecting. The third mitzvah is to which one has no connection, like there's no connection to the mitzvah and therefore no obligation. Noahide's practice is compelled by logic or adopt voluntarily for practical benefits falls in the second category of mitzvahs mentioned above. This includes prayers and making blessings on benefits. Now, very few blessings have their sources in the Torah. Most blessings are decreed upon the Jewish community by the rabbinic authority. However, no blessings were ever required of the Noahide community. Nevertheless, the logic that compelled the rabbinic decree required Jews to make blessing applies equally to Noahide community. However, making blessings is not obligatory. It is rather a preferable and meritorious practice. Blessings are either made over benefit or mitzvahs or as praise. Only the first and last types are applicable to the Noahide community. God doesn't need us to bless him. He's not deficient in any way. He doesn't need your blessing. When we say Baruch Hashem, bless God, it is an acknowledgement of his role as a source of all blessing and benefit. This is one of the reasons why when someone asks you how you're doing, we often respond, Baruch Hashem, bless God. The text of the blessing, as established by Ezra and his great assembly, are for the most part applicable to both Jews and Noahides. There are a few notable exceptions to use of Jewish bracha blessings of texts by Noahides. A major one is the Jewish text for blessing after meals, Birchas HaMazon. This blessing speaks of concerns unique to the Jewish spiritual position. Instead, Noahide should use the Noahide text recorded in the Midrash. This text may be enhanced by adding the psalm or especially composed in text. So when it comes to prayer, do you use the Siddur, not use the Siddur? Well, actually, it's what you prefer to do, whatever you're more comfortable with. Some people are more comfortable with what we call open, free prayer, not directed by specific words, but by the words that come off of your heart and tongue and mind. Hitzbadadut, personal prayer. It's a very effective prayer. Even though Noahides are not obligated to say a bracha, it just makes good common sense to be grateful to the master of the universe. So why not? Anytime that you have an opportunity to lift a glass of water to your lips, to say a bracha, blessing Hashem for the water, or thanking him, whether you use the specific prayer that is provided within the context of Judaism and the Siddur, you can use that. At the same time, you're not obligated to do that. One of the things that we're learning in this course as a Noahide, you have tremendous leadway by the master of the universe to be you and to follow the instructions of the Torah and the Jewish people who are the priests of the nations. We have a great opportunity to take upon ourselves the mitzvahs at the same time we have the liberty to be who we are in our culture, etc. So when it comes to prayer, keep praying, and we'll see you tomorrow in the next class on blessings and prayers.